even more scary that they're out of control. But I mean, it doesn't matter, Dr. Roberts, because doesn't it take us to the same place?
Yeah, that's why I don't really worry about whether it's a conspiracy or not, because it's not, in the end, it's not going to work for them or anybody, because the system is going down.
But Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa into Russia. They just do it.
People make mistakes. That's the human condition. And so that's another reason I don't really worry about long-term conspiracies. I think there are a lot of short-term ones. But to keep a conspiracy going through the ages without making mistakes is probably beyond human potential. Now, maybe they're all aliens disguised as humans and have super intelligence. But, you know, if you look around the mistakes people make, even smart people, even people like you and I, we make mistakes. So to think that they can keep a conspiracy going for decades and decades without making a mistake is not likely.
Well, we know they have the program for world government.
Well, look, I still wonder how they're going to get China and Russia to go along with it. Or South America, which is breaking away from the system. You know, if you look at it, you see more and more people breaking away from American dominance.
No, I agree. Zbigniew Brzezinski 4 months ago addressed the CFR and said just that.
But let's go to one other question. About the left wing. I really don't think there is a left wing anymore. I think in America, the United States left wing was destroyed by the political and economic collapse of socialism, communism. And we had the triumphal end of history, you know, democratic capitalism. And this triumphalism destroyed the left. This is why there's no real resistance to the police state. There's no real resistance to the wars.
Well, notice the left hasn't even talked about Obama reauthorizing the Patriot Act 3 days ago.
But there's not any left. I mean, there's a very mild, watered-down left, but it's nothing like it once was. And that's because the destruction of socialism, communism, the triumphalism of democratic capitalism, the end of history. And so to put balance back, I think democratic capitalism is going to have to go through a crisis. I think we're seeing that begin with the economic deterioration. The Fed Reserve doesn't seem able to forestall. You know, the huge stimulus program did nothing for the economy. This is unusual. The enormous expansion of bank reserves have done nothing for the economy. Interest rates are practically zero. The economy is not recovering. This is sort of out of bounds of what they are used to. So we see an economic crisis that they can't apparently handle, and it seems to be getting away from them. Politically, the fact that there's only one party, we see the rise of all this anger in the Tea Party candidates. They don't really know what to do or what they're angry about, for the most part, most of them, but they're angry. They know the system doesn't work for them. My recent column that you posted, The Impotence of Elections, explains why the system doesn't work for them. And so if you get a population in which the economy doesn't work for them and the political system doesn't work for them, you get collapse, or you get revolution, or things fall apart. And then all of a sudden, the triumphalism of the end of history, the supremacy of democratic capitalism, that fades away.
All right, let me stop you because I want to get into the police state that integrates into all of this, Dr. Roberts, in the 6 minutes we've got left with you. But when I read the RAND Corporation reports that are public, most of it's secret, and I look at this, they talked about the service economy being security 12, 15 years ago, back during that period. And so the fake right is trying to replace the economy with surveillance, prisons, control, a gulag economy, as Max Kaiser calls it. Then the so-called left, their answer is the, quote, green economy that's a wet blanket on already dead industry. And so I do see the establishment putting forward plans after this latest phase has destroyed us economically. So they are putting out their plans, And we know what it is. It's naked body scanners. It's checkpoints. It's threat fusion centers. Can you speak to your article, Might is Right? Because we have the New York Times columnist, Joe Sharkey, talking about being screamed at, being made to basically be strip searched in front of people. They're now announcing, if you don't want to be naked body scanned, we're going to literally squeeze your genitals. I mean, this is an act of humiliation. This is an act of domination.
Well, yes, this is a consequence of 9/11. There's no doubt that we're having a police state. In part, in fact, I think the real reason we have body scanners is because of Michael Chertoff, whose firm represents the body scanner manufacturer. And note the coincidence between the implementation of body scanners and the underwear bomber. Now, when I heard about the underwear bomber plot, I thought, now this is staged. If the mighty powerful Al-Qaeda can attack the Pentagon and the World Trade Center and outwit all the intelligence agencies and blah, 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 why would they reduce themselves to an underwear bomber focused on a mere airliner? That's a huge come down. It hurts their reputation. It's kind of like after you're a great boxer and you knock out the champion and then you go start picking on 10-year-old kids. It's just, it doesn't help the image. So I think the whole thing was staged. They needed Chertoff, who was, of course, head of Homeland Security, now represents the body scanner industry. They had the body scanners all made. They were all made, ready to go. They needed an excuse. Without an excuse to terrify the people, how was the government going to ram this type of invasion of privacy down people's throats? So they concocted the underwear bomber. And then now Chertoff's made more money selling these body scanners. So that some of these explanations don't require anything other than greed, just normal greed. This is the way things happen. Now, it doesn't mean we don't have a police state. We certainly do. And it's no doubt, it's getting worse. But since I've been so pessimistic, let me say one thing that's hopeful. Sometimes power alone isn't enough. Remember the Soviet collapse. They had a police state. The Communist Party was as powerful as any aristocracy ever, all kinds of special privileges. They had total power, and yet they let the system go. It really wasn't overthrown. What had happened was all the years and years of frustration and failure and all the terrible stuff eroded the belief of the people at the top who had the power in the system. And they just were willing to let it go. Gorbachev, Yeltsin, they just said, to hell with it. And they walked away from it. It fell. And these types of things can happen. They take a long time. But it does show that there is always something operating other than raw power and mendacity. And always in the short run and in the intermediate run, raw power, mendacity, brutality, evil, all of this can prevail. But in the long run, it seems to turn the stomachs even of the rulers.
It starts rotting from...
Explain the collapse of the Communist Party, the Soviet Union, the most powerful body that ever existed.
Dr. Roberts, we're almost out of... Sure, we're almost out of time, and I'm skipping this network break to finish up with you, but I just wanted to back up what you said. When you mentioned your gut telling you that was a staged event with the underwear bombing, we now know that Anwar al-Awlaki supposedly ran all of these events, and he was meeting 2 months after 9/11 when he was the number 3 in Al-Qaeda, secretly at the Pentagon with the top brass. That's even on Fox News. I mean, this is really becoming so transparent.
Yes. Well, I think that if people catch on to that, it helps to accelerate the lack of confidence in the political system that we already see signs of, as we said, with the Tea Party. And we certainly are going to see people losing confidence in the economic system, because if the Fed doesn't seem able, even with its most extreme measures, to bring the economy back or even to stop its continued deterioration. So we may see a serious deterioration in the economy over the next 3-6 months next year, which will show helplessness on the part of these powerful people. And if that's the case, you'll see a lot of loss of confidence, not just among the population in general, but among those pulling the strings themselves.
Well, Doctor, final question, and we appreciate your time and your great columns that you put out, sometimes multiple times weekly. And I also want to briefly talk about your new book, dealing with what's happening with the economy. And we have links to it at Infowars.com at the bottom of all of the articles that you write on a wide range of subjects. But I think in the middle we meet in that, from my own research, the ruling class is a group of competing mafias, and they think they're in control, but really they're not, as history shows, and as it's revealed that they're not in control. I mean, they can steal and destroy and start wars, but they're not in control. They can wreak havoc. And I wanted to get your psychological view, because you've been around a lot of these people, you know, in Washington over the years. You've studied it. That there does seem to be a wild mental illness now of just crazy hubris that we see with criminals, where they love to brag, to have them openly admit that Anwar al-Awlaki's hanging out at the Pentagon, to have them come on Fox and CNN and admit our government gives the fertilizer to the Taliban to grow the opium and the production's off the charts, to see the CIA tell the Washington Post, yes, we make fake bin Laden videos. And yes, they were. I mean, there's this just, you know, going before Congress and saying we won't say where the trillions went. It's almost more than just a hubris. It's like a flailing or a catch me if you can. I'm the gingerbread man. I mean, what do you say about this? Just this out in the openness about so much of this now.
Well, Alex, hubris always leads to destruction. So I think that. I mean, look, this is far more hubris than Hitler showed by marching into Russia. This is more extreme.
He almost won.
He almost won. But the kind of hubris we're seeing that you just described is extreme hubris. And so it's going to come unglued. I think it will come unglued. But it doesn't mean we won't suffer tremendously as a consequence. It doesn't mean there won't be prison camps and people won't be put in them. But I think the system is right now showing more signs of failing than succeeding. That's just my opinion.
It's showing signs of complete mental illness, megalomania.
Well, how are you going to succeed in that type of a situation? Now, you know, possibly they can brainwash everyone, but as I say, it's hard to brainwash people who are out of work, out of homes, out of prospects, out of hope for their kids' prospects. They're hard to, I mean, you can say, oh, it's the Chinese who did it, or you can, you know, point fingers and you can keep them blaming the wrong people, but nevertheless, they still realize the system's not working, whoever the government is telling them to blame. And if the government